is Ariel,
This is Tanya.
and we are with Raising Awareness of Societal Issues. And in our session today, we're going to talk about an issue that is often overlooked in our country, America, and that is homelessness.
Uh, Seen homelessness everywhere. Everywhere. No matter where you are and you think it's not there, it's there.
And the sad thing about it is that, unlike so many issues that we have going on in our country today, like with unemployment, people are fighting, to get for everybody to have jobs. People are fighting for, employment rates to go up. People are fighting for a number of other issues, but when it comes to homelessness, that's just something that we want to sweep under the rug, and we want to do that because it doesn't affect us. And I think as American people, that is a very selfish attitude to have. I really do.
Very much so, because it can be any one of us. Personally, I have no problem with disclosure. We are poverty level people. We are under the poverty line, in fact. We get food stamps, first time that's ever happened. And I know that we are always a week away from being homeless. We can lose it at any time, and so can you. And that's something that you need to consider when you see homeless people sitting on the side of the road, wanting and needing.
And I'll tell you, the sad thing about that, when it comes to seeing, homeless people, a really sad thing is that they're often mistreated.
Very much so. People look at homeless people like objects. They're part of the scenery, and they don't matter anymore. They're not human. Just they're not even treated like a dog. It's like you're not there. We don't want to see you.
Oh, I tell you, stray dogs on the side of the road get treated better from what I've seen than homeless people.
Yes.
I've seen people rescue stray dogs, but if you see a homeless man or a homeless woman sitting beside the road, when's the last time that you've rescued a homeless man or a homeless woman?
Right. And of course, we can't just pick up someone we see on the side of the road.
Of course.
Or find a homeless person and say, look, come home with me. Let me take care of you. Because we have to take care of ourselves too.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it could be dangerous. You don't know. But the thing is that you have to at least find a way to offer services. Point them in the right direction. Help them get what they need to get to pick themselves up.
Yes. And I'll tell you, starting with the problem, let's say that you're out one day, you're at work or you're wherever, and a homeless person asks you for $1. A lot of times one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about homeless people is like, oh, they're drug addicts.
Right.
Or they're alcoholics. If I give this person any money, they're just like a lousy bum. They're only going to get, drugs and alcohol with it. So why should I give them my hard-earned money? But at the same time, if someone's in need, why not help them out? That could be the only meal they could get that day.
Right.
You know.
But even if they take it and they go buy a 40 or whatever,
Oh yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. I would rather them be honest with me and say, hey, I need a beer. Because I'll go get you one. If you're living on the streets, I don't know what put you there. It's not my business what put you there unless you want to tell me. But if I'm willing to give something, it's from my pure heart. It's all pure. What you do with it afterwards, not my concern, because
Right.
I did it with a pure charitable heart. So if you want to go get drunk and that's your only comfort, no problem with me.
Yeah, and I tell you something else, like you were saying, they're not human beings anymore. I've seen that happen way too many times, If they're there, we can't judge them.
Right.
We don't know what put them there.
Right.
And like you were saying earlier, that could either be me or you.
And also, you look at people on the streets and, I'm guilty of it myself until, I was saved, not religiously saved, but just saved in a spiritual way to know that they might have just lost everything,
Right.
and they might not be there by any fault of their own, but then they turn to drugs and alcohol and self-medicate so they don't have to feel what's going on. I mean, sometimes they come into the situation because they're addicts or alcoholics, but sometimes they come into the situation and turn into alcoholics and addicts.
Yes, that's very true. That is, because, like you're saying, we don't know what put them there.
Right.
And they could be just, normal people that, like you're saying, that just lost everything. And the only thing that I say that we should do if we see homeless people is, like, try to do something,
Right.
to help. That $1 you give or that handful of change you give could make them all the difference.
Absolutely. Especially just, even if it's just that one day.
Yeah.
Because they've got to take it a day at a time just like we do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not Christian, of course, but I take things from the Bible because they're meaningful.
Oh, yes.
Whether you're a believer or non-believer, it contains good information for living. And God, of course, said, woe unto those who pass unjust laws and ignore the lesser of us. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And North Carolina in general is putting us further and further into this problem. There are going to be more homeless people, a lot more homeless people with the way our legislators pass laws. I mean, 900,000 people lost everything.
Wow.
700,000 Medicaid cuts. You know that.
Oh, yes.
You can't get Medicaid.
Oh, yeah.
And last year you would have qualified. But now that these laws have passed, it's making it to where we're going to be forced to the streets or forced to revolt.
And I tell you that is just, it's really terrible, with our government, that it's the person on the bottom that it doesn't matter, if you're up top, you're good, you're safe. But it's, the people on the bottom, and the sad thing about it, it's so many more of us that are on the bottom than it is than people on the top.
And that scares them.
Oh, yeah.
It frightens them. And if you've noticed, and I know this does tie into the homeless issue because of what it's doing to, all these laws are doing to people, and to put us in a situation where we are going to face, destruction. When we rose up with Moral Monday, and that included a large amount of the homeless population that came together with us, they got scared. And if you look back in history, the same thing happened during George Wallace's time in government. And when they get scared, what's the first thing they do? They attack our voting rights. So it makes it harder for us to vote and get them out of there so we can pick ourselves up off the ground.
Right.
And it's hard enough for us to pick ourselves up off the ground, let alone somebody that's down there on the street being stepped on, which I have seen.
Oh, I tell you, that is terrible. Excuse me, I tell you, I've seen some terrible mistreatment of homeless people myself.
Yes.
And I'll tell you one of the most memorable experiences, well, actually two. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was working for a major retailer. I saw two homeless guys sitting outside, and they had panhandled and got enough money where they could go in, to the restaurant on the inside and buy themselves something to eat. The people there took their money, and after they left, they were spraying air freshener, talking about just how bad they just stank up the place. Never mind, these people, it took them however long to get $2 so they could buy themselves a sandwich to
They
eat.
probably split it.
Oh, yeah.
That makes me sick.
Yeah, that does. And, I mean, it's okay if they come in as long as, they're clean and they look good, nice, normal people. But if a dirty, grimy person comes in, you have a problem with it,
Right. And I'm not taking shots at any, okay, maybe I am, at people, especially in our area. It's a very large Christian population. And for you can't say you love God and then on the other hand hate your brother.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do it. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and if I specifically remember, didn't Jesus say, give to the poor and needy?
Very much.
Yeah, I think he said that several times.
Yes. Jesus was poor. Jesus was homeless.
Yeah.
He wandered everywhere. He didn't have a home. He was homeless. Any one of these homeless people could be Jesus,
An angel.
an angel, anything, and you're just shooting yourself in the
And I mean, we're all human beings. These are our brothers and our sisters that run this street.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, you don't know what made them homeless.
foot. Right.
I mean, and from something I saw, this was many years ago, and it still rings true today. The average American is one paycheck.
Yeah.
One paycheck with all the debt and everything that we're in from being homeless.
Yeah. And it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've got 4 kids. You, God, I hope you only have 3 kids.
Yeah, me
But
too.
if you have 4, I mean, could you imagine having
Yeah.
to look at your child? It's hard enough for me to look at them and say, I'm sorry, I can't take you bowling today. I have to wait for money. And my youngest is 6. And he shouldn't know this at this point in his life. But he hears it, and that's my fault. But it's impossible for him not to hear it. You know, he'll come to me and say, can I have such and such when you have enough money? And that breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. But could you imagine having them on the street?
Oh, that would be terrible. And you know, homeless children, that's not something I've seen a lot of, but I know it happens. I know that it does happen, and I tell you, just with the shape that this economy is in, that's really a scary thought.
In New York, back, well, a few months after September 11th, I had went up there because I was just pulled to be there because that's my home, and I wanted to see firsthand what had happened to it. And we were walking through a lot of the back streets at night, and there was a woman, and she had a shopping cart, and she was huddled up next to the shopping cart. It was a small cart, maybe about this tall. She had all these blankets and stuff in it, and there was a baby in it,
Oh my God.
and it was cold at night.
And I tell you, it just makes you think, how can people be so heartless?
Yeah. I mean, you're in a city like New York, millions of people, so much food, so many jobs, so many empty apartments, and there's people living on the street with their baby wrapped in blankets inside a shopping cart, and it's bad. Even if the mother put herself there, that child didn't put themselves there.
You know, and I mean, for someone not to say, step in, you know, for the sake of the child,
Yeah.
you know, you have to be one cruel, heartless person.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the majority of people that I run into. But I've found a great group of people that aren't like that, and that has uplifted me. So I'm hoping other people will find it. They just keep watching us.
Yes.
Come tomorrow Mondays. Get spiritually uplifted. Find ways to help your brothers and sisters. Because they are your brothers and sisters.